The double life. Confronting my wife's betrayal and the secrets that shattered our family. Hey, I'm Ryan, and I'm about to turn 37. I've been married to my wife Emily for almost 10 years now. We live in this quiet suburban area in Ohio in a house we always dreamed of having. Our relationship has been pretty happy and stable, We've been through a lot, and I always felt our bond was strong. But 6 months ago, something started to change. Em got more distant and irritable. She was always on her phone, and it seemed like she was absorbed in it. At first, I thought maybe it was just work stress from being a nurse. She works long hours at the hospital, you know how it is. Our daughter Lily is 6, and she's the light of our life. I try my best to take care of her and run the household when Em's at work, but it seems like she's getting further away no matter what I do. Then one evening, after getting Lily to bed, Em was unusually quiet at dinner. She hardly ate anything and seemed distracted. She kept looking at her phone. My heart dropped, but I tried not to worry, maybe she was just tired or sick. Later that night, after Emily had gone to bed, I heard her phone beeping with notifications. I was curious and went to check it out. On the kitchen counter, I saw her phone, so I looked at the screen. There was a text from some guy named Mark with a picture attached. I felt a bit weird because something didn't seem right. But then my curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to look at the message. The picture showed a baby, and the text said something about how he couldn't wait to meet me. I started wondering who this baby was and who this Mark guy was. Why was he sending messages to my wife like that? I was scrolling through their text conversation, my hands were shaking. It didn't take me long to find out the truth. Emily had been cheating on me with Mark for over a year. Their messages were full of intimate details and plans they were making behind my back. The worst part, they even had a kid together. My breathing got heavy, and my chest felt like it was being crushed. I put the phone down and felt like the whole world around me was crumbling. Not only did Emily betray me, but she also created a life with another person and kid that I didn't even know about. Our marriage, our family, everything we thought we had built together was a lie. That night, I couldn't confront her. I just couldn't face it. I didn't know what to say and how to start the conversation that would destroy everything. So I stayed there in the living room, just staring at the wall until early morning. My mind kept replaying every moment of the last year, looking for clues that I missed. How could I be so blind? The next day, I dropped Lily off at school like nothing was wrong. But inside, I was a mess. I knew I needed to talk to Emily about what had happened, but it wasn't easy. How do you bring up something so serious with someone you love? How do you even approach them after they've shattered your whole world? After Lily went to bed that night, I finally mustered up the courage. Emily was on the couch scrolling on her phone, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I plopped down across from her and took a deep breath before saying, "So, who's Mark?" Her face went pale as she dropped her phone. Her hands started to shake. The silence was crushing as we just stared at each other for a moment. "Ryan, I'm so sorry," she started, but I cut her off. Don't lie. I saw the texts. I know about the baby," I said. Her eyes started to fill with tears, and for a second, I saw all the guilt and regret she'd been hiding. That didn't make it any easier to deal with. I didn't want her crying. I wanted answers. I needed to know why she did it, how she could have done it to me like that. Emily tried to talk, her voice cracking as she said, "I'm sorry, Ryan. I never meant for any of this to happen." I stood up, unable to sit still anymore. "You didn't mean for it to happen, but you've been seeing someone else for a year and have a kid with them. How could you?" My voice broke under the weight of it all. "I didn't know how to tell you, I swear," she whispered. I laughed, but there was bitterness in my voice. "You didn't tell me? Man, you've been living 2 lives, Em. You've lied to me every single day. Everything between us was a lie." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. It hurt my heart all over again when I said, "I don't even know who you really are anymore." Emily's tears didn't mean anything to me anymore. I just stood there, staring at her, feeling like the person I thought I knew best in the world was a stranger. I couldn't believe she'd been living a double life and hiding something so big from me. Could I ever trust her again? "Please, Ryan," she begged, her voice so soft I could barely hear it. "I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted to scream and throw something and do anything to get rid of the anger bubbling inside me, but I just stayed there, my hands trembling as I clenched my fists." "How long?" I asked, my voice so cold and distant. "How long have you been seeing someone else?" She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "It all started about a year ago," she said, her voice shaking. "We met at the hospital. He works there too. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It just happened. So what? It just happened, right? I said, my tone a bit harsher than intended. You cheated on me. You started a whole other life with someone else and hid it from me. She wiped her eyes and tried to stay strong. It started out as something casual. I never meant for it to get serious, she said. I couldn't believe what she was saying. Casual? You have a kid together, I said again. That wasn't some fling, Her face flinched and her hands started shaking as she tried to explain. Ryan, I know, I messed up. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, her words like poison that twisted the knife already in my heart. You can't just say you love me and then do that, I replied. Emily tried to get closer to me, but I stepped back, giving us some space. I needed some air, some time to breathe. It all felt so overwhelming. My whole world had changed in just a few hours, and I didn't know how to handle it. I wanted to tell you something, Emily said softly. I just didn't know the right time, I scoffed. There's never a good time to hear that your wife is cheating on you and has a kid with another guy. Tears started to well up in her eyes, making her look vulnerable. For once, I saw her differently. She didn't seem as strong and in charge as usual. I couldn't feel sympathy for her though, because she'd hurt me. What about Lily? I said, my voice softening. How could she do that to our daughter? At the mention of Lily's name, Emily's face fell. She whispered, I didn't want to hurt her. I thought it would be better if we kept things separate. You were wrong, I said, my voice sharp and clear. I could see guilt on her face. What you did isn't just hurting me, it's tearing our family apart, I continued. There was a heavy silence after my words. I heard the clock ticking and Lily's soft breathing upstairs. My heart ached, not just for me, but for our daughter too. How could I explain all this to her? How could I look at her and pretend everything was fine when everything felt so broken? Emily wiped her eyes and her shoulders slumped in defeat. I know what I've done was wrong and hurt you, but I want to try to fix it, Ryan, she said. I laughed, though it wasn't funny. There's nothing to fix, Emily. What you did can't be undone, I replied. She looked at me with those pleading eyes of hers. But we can still try, right? We can go to therapy, talk about it, work through it together. I shook my head. Work through what exactly? How can I work through the fact that my wife was living a secret life with another man and had a child? Emily didn't have an answer for that. She just stood there, feeling defeated, knowing there was nothing she could say or do to make things better. I just need some time, she said. I can't stay here right now. She started to argue but then stopped, realizing it was pointless. I walked past her, grabbing my keys off the counter. I needed to leave that house, leave all the lies behind. As I reached for the front door, Emily called after me. Ryan, don't leave. I hesitated, hand on the doorknob, thinking about staying and trying to work things out. But the weight of what she'd done was just too heavy. It was too hard to pretend everything was okay anymore. Without another word, I walked out and closed the door behind me. I stepped outside into the cool night air, my head a mess of thoughts. No specific destination in mind, I just needed to drive and clear my head. As I gripped the wheel, my hands were shaking. What had happened with Emily had left me feeling lost and confused. Should I confront her or talk to someone else? What about Lily? How could I protect her? I drove aimlessly through the quiet streets, the weight of it all pressing down on me. Emotions were heavy, and I wasn't sure what to do. Keep it to myself or share my feelings. I parked the car and sat there, staring up at the sky. My chest tightened, my mind racing. Our relationship with Emily seemed solid, but now it felt uncertain. No matter what I choose, I know it's going to be a whole new ballgame. I have no idea what's in store, but I'm ready to roll with the punches and figure it out. The next morning, I woke up in my car, parked in some random parking lot outside of the city. I dozed off for a bit during the night, but sleep didn't really help. My head was aching from all the tension, and my body felt exhausted, but I still couldn't bring myself to go home. For a while, I just sat there, staring at the rising sun. My mind was replaying all those moments when I found those messages on Emily's phone, and that picture of the baby, a baby I never even knew existed. Emily had deceived me. She'd hidden her whole life away from me. I had no idea how to move forward after that. Reluctantly, I checked my phone and saw all these missed calls and messages from Emily asking where I was, if I was okay, if I'd come home. But I still couldn't respond to her. I wasn't ready to talk to her or face the chaos that had become my life. I wasn't sure what to do, so I just drove to my buddy Jack's place. We've been best buds since college, and he'd know how to help me out. If anyone can understand what I'm going through, it'd be Jack. When I pulled up, he opened the door and saw something was up with me. Man, what's wrong? You look like shit. I went inside, overwhelmed by all my emotions. Jack, I need to talk to you about something. It's Emily. We went to the couch and I explained what happened. She's cheated on me for a year and there's even a kid involved. I found out today. Jack was shocked and didn't know what to say. Emily cheating? I can't even believe it. How did she do that? His words hurt, but I knew he meant well. I was as shocked as he was. Yeah, it's crazy. I need some help. What do I do now? I asked. Jack took a deep breath and tried to calm down. Let's talk this out, man. We'll figure this thing out together. We talked it over and came up with some ideas. It was tough, but we knew we had each other's backs. Last night, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, I found out she's been seeing someone else. They have a kid, Jack. A kid I didn't even know about. Jack looked at me in disbelief. Ryan, what am I supposed to say? I replied bitterly, I don't know either. Over the next hour, I told him everything, the texts, the kid, the conversation with her. He just listened, his face getting more serious with each minute. When I was done, he sat back and shook his head. I can't believe she did this to you. You've always been there for her. I was like, man, I thought we had something solid going on. I get that her job is hard, but I never thought she'd do something like that. How can you hide something as big as a kid? Jack, man, how could you? Jack just sighed and rubbed his temples. He said, Ryan, I know how hard this is for you. We have to face it head on. You can't avoid the truth. It'll always catch up with you. I nodded, feeling kinda defeated. Yeah, you're right. I need to talk to her. But where do I start? How am I supposed to deal with this? What do I do now? He took a second to think, then said, just take some time and think about it. Do you want to try and work things out, or is it over for good? My mind was racing with thoughts of the two of them together, but also how we could try again if we wanted. To be honest, man, I'm not sure I can forgive Em. It's been a long time since we broke up, and I don't know if we can make our relationship work again. Ryan nodded, understanding my hesitation. That's okay. Take your time. Don't rush things. Think about what would make you happy and what the future holds. Maybe there's still a way to make it work, but only if you both work on yourselves and your relationship. Jack leaned forward, serious. Look, no matter what, you have to think of Lily. She's innocent in all of this, and you need to be there for her. No matter what happens between you and Em, the thought of Lily's well-being made my heart hurt. She didn't deserve to be caught up in this mess. How could I tell her about it? How could I protect her from getting hurt? I understand, Ryan said softly. You won't let that happen to her. Jack nodded, his eyes softening. Take your time, Ryan. Don't rush into anything right now, but don't ignore this either. Talk to Emily and see where it goes. He had a point, but that didn't make it easier. The thought of going home and dealing with Emily was overwhelming. I knew it was inevitable, though. Tonight, I'm going back home, I finally said. I need to talk to her. Jack gave me a sympathetic look. Good. If you need me, I'm here. That evening, as I drove home, my stomach was in knots. The familiar driveway filled me with dread. The house that used to be a comfort was now a source of anxiety. I had no idea what to expect when I walked in the door. Inside, the house was quiet. Emily was on the couch, her face pale and eyes red from crying. She looked up as I walked in. Ryan, she started, her voice trembling. Ryan, she said again, this time a little stronger. I held up my hand to stop her. Let's talk, but let's not do it here or now. Lily's in the house, and she shouldn't hear us. Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. She's sleeping. I took a deep breath. I'm not ready for a conversation right now, but we'll have one. For now, just know that Lily comes first. She deserves stability, no matter what's going on between us. More tears welled up in Emily's eyes, but she didn't say anything. She just nodded, knowing that the journey ahead would be tough. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight, I said, heading towards the stairs. Let's talk in the morning. Without waiting for an answer, I climbed the stairs, the weight of everything pressing down on me with each step. When I passed Lily's room, I paused, hearing her soft breathing. She was oblivious to the storm that was brewing in our world. I knew I had to be there for both of us no matter what, but as I was lying in the spare room that night, staring at the ceiling, I wondered if I had the guts to deal with it all. The next morning, it was so heavy in the house. Every room, every corner, and everything seemed to be weighed down by the betrayal between me and Emily. I heard Lily laughing in the kitchen, not knowing about the drama going on with her parents. I knew I had to keep up the act for her sake, but I felt like I was getting sucked into quicksand with every second. There was no way I could avoid Emily forever, and we had to talk. It wasn't going to fix itself magically. After taking a long shower, I walked into the kitchen to find Emily sitting at the table with a coffee cup. She looked tired and pale, like she hadn't slept at all. Lily was drawing next to her, totally oblivious to the tension. "Hey, honey," I said softly to Lily, giving her a quick kiss on the forehead. "Want to play in the living room for a bit? Mom and I need to have a chat for a minute." She looked at me with those big, innocent eyes full of curiosity. She didn't say anything, but you could tell she was thinking. "Sure, Dad," she said, grabbing her crayons and running off to the other room. When she was out of hearing range, I turned to Emily, who was sitting there with tears in her eyes. "I've been up all night thinking about everything, Lily, everything I did. I don't know what to do, Ryan," she whispered. I sat there, feeling the weight of her words. "We have to talk, Em. We can't just ignore this anymore." She nodded, her hands shaking as she put her mug down on the table. "You're right. I understand why you're mad and hurt. I did hurt you, and I can't change that. But I have no idea what to do about it." Her voice cracked, and I reached out to take her hand across the table. We sat in silence for a minute, both trying to find the right words to say how we felt. Then she said, "Let's take some time, think about it, and talk again later when we're both more clear-headed." I agreed, and she went back to her side, processing what had happened. I sighed, ran my hand through my hair, and tried to find the words to describe how I felt. "Emily, you've lied to me for a year now. You're carrying someone else's child. I'm not sure how to handle that." Her eyes were filled with regret as she tried to blink away a tear. "Ryan, I know I can't expect you to forgive me right now. In fact, I have no idea if you'll ever be able to forgive me. But I really want to try to make things better between us. I don't want to lose everything we've worked so hard for. I want us to stay together." Even though I wanted to believe what she was saying, the damage was huge. Our trust had been broken. Our love had been shattered. "Can you imagine what you've done to me?" I asked, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to stay calm. "This is more than just cheating, Emily. You were building a whole other life while pretending everything was okay with us. Every day, you were lying to me, making me believe everything was fine when it really wasn't." Emily winced at what I said, and for a second, I felt a twinge of guilt. Almost, "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Mark, he was never supposed to be more than a distraction. But things spiraled out of control, and I didn't know how to stop it. And when I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. I was afraid to tell you. I didn't want to lose you." Her words lingered in the air, like a dark cloud. I tried to see things from her perspective, but that didn't change the fact that she betrayed me. I couldn't just forgive her just because she was scared. "You should have talked to me," I said, my voice breaking with emotion. "No matter how scared you were, we could have worked things out. But you chose to keep it a secret. You chose him." She shook her head, tears running down her face. "It wasn't that, Ryan. I never chose him. I always wanted you. I just got lost," I repeated, my anger rising again. "Lost? You didn't just get lost, Emily. You made decisions that destroyed us." We sat in silence for a long time, the tension thick and unbearable between us. I didn't know what to say next. In fact, I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. A part of me wanted to just walk out the door and not come back. But another part of me felt like I should stay for Lily's sake, try to salvage what was left of our marriage. But would it ever be the same? Could I look at Emily without seeing her betrayal? Finally, I just admitted, "I don't know what to do. I can't stay, and I can't forgive you." Emily's face crumpled as she covered her face with her hands, sobbing softly. "Please don't leave me, Ryan. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I love you so much. I want to fix this. I'll do anything, therapy, counseling, anything it takes. Please, please don't give up on us." Her words really touched me. I wanted to believe what she said, that we could make it work, but I was so hurt. "It's not just us, Em," I said softly. "It's also about Lily. I don't want her growing up in a messed up family. I don't want her getting hurt because of what happened between us." She whispered, "Me neither. I want us to be a family, and I want to fix things for Lily." I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, trying to slow down my racing mind. The idea of Lily not having both of her parents together was unthinkable. And the idea of pretending everything's okay when it's clearly not was unbearable too. Could I really keep going like this? Could we really stay in a broken relationship? Then I stood up and said, "I need time. I can't decide right now. I need some time to think things through." She nodded, with tears still running down her face. "Take as long as you need, Ree. I'll be here, waiting." Over the next few days, it was all a bit of a blur. I kind of just went through the motions, taking Lily to school, going to work. But inside, I was lost and confused. Em tried to give me some space, but she was still watching me, waiting for some sign things were going to get better. But I just didn't know what to do. At night, in the spare room, I'd lie awake, my mind going round and round. I kept thinking about Mark, the guy who'd messed up my world. I still hadn't met him, hadn't seen him face to face. But if I did, I knew I'd lose it. The idea of facing him made my blood boil. He'd caused all this trouble in my family. He took something that wasn't his, and I couldn't just let that go. But was he really to blame? Em had made her choices too. She'd hidden things from me, let things get out of hand. I knew I couldn't keep putting off the big talk with Emily. I had to make a decision, stay and try to fix our marriage, or go and start over. But for now, I just needed some time to think. I needed to figure out what I really wanted. After another day of avoiding her, I was sitting at home, looking at my phone, my finger hovering over his name. I'd found his number on her phone that night, when I found out about everything. Part of me wanted to just call him and scream at him, but I knew that wouldn't help. So I decided to take a different approach. I'd confront him in person. I wanted to see the person who'd shattered my world and understand why they did what they did. The decision to meet Mark wasn't something I had planned for long. It came after another sleepless night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory of my marriage and its destruction. I had to see him to understand why he had done this. There was no fixing things without facing him. I needed closure, even if it came at the cost of whatever last shred of peace I had left. The next day, while Emily was out, I texted him. I didn't mince words. I asked to meet, and he didn't hesitate to agree. It was unsettling how quickly he responded, as if he had been expecting this. We agreed to meet at a park, just outside town, a neutral place, away from the chaos of home. As I drove to meet him, my mind raced. I had no idea what I was going to say. I wasn't sure if I would be able to hold back my anger, or if this meeting would spiral out of control. All I knew was that I needed answers. When I arrived at the park, I spotted him almost immediately. He was standing near a bench, hands in his pockets, looking around nervously. I recognized him from the few pictures I had seen on Emily's phone. Tall, well-built, clean-cut. He didn't look like a homewrecker, but appearances didn't matter now. I parked the car and walked toward him, feeling the weight of every step. As I got closer, he noticed me, standing up straighter, his face showing a mix of guilt and apprehension. "Ryan," he said as I approached. His voice was soft, almost apologetic. "Thanks for meeting me. I didn't bother with pleasantries. Let's cut the crap." "Why? Why her? Why my wife?" he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I know there's nothing I can say that will make this right. I'm sorry. I really am. Sorry," I scoffed. "Sorry doesn't fix what you've done. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you've wrecked my marriage, my life, my family." He looked down at the ground, unable to meet my eyes. "I didn't plan for any of this to happen. It got out of control. We didn't mean for it to go this far." I clenched my fists, feeling the anger boil over. "You didn't mean for it to go this far? You have a child together, Mark. You've created a life with my wife. How can you stand there and tell me this was never supposed to happen?" He looked up, guilt etched deeply into his face. "I didn't know she was married at first, Ryan. When we started, I didn't know. By the time I found out, it was too late. I was already in too deep." I stepped closer, my fists tightening at my sides. "And when you did find out, you didn't stop, did you? You kept seeing her. You kept lying to me. You kept pretending like it didn't matter." Mark took a deep breath, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm not here to defend what I did. I'm here because you deserve to know the truth. I know I should have walked away, and I didn't. That's on me. But I didn't try to break up your family. I never asked Emily to leave you. She made her own choices." "Her choices?" I repeated bitterly. "You think that makes it better? That you didn't ask her to leave? You think that absolves you?" Mark shook his head. "No, I don't. But I want you to understand I never wanted this to end the way it has. Emily loves you, Ryan. She's told me that 1,000 times. She was never going to leave you. I was the mistake. I was a mistake she regrets." His words stung. I didn't want to hear that Emily still loved me, that I was somehow above him in her mind. It felt like he was trying to justify what he had done, and I wasn't buying it. "You don't get to say that," I said coldly. You don't get to tell me what she feels or doesn't feel. You don't know what you've done to us." Mark stood in silence, his guilt evident in his expression. For a moment, I considered walking away, leaving him to stew in his shame. But I couldn't. There was still one thing I needed to know. "How do you plan on raising that child?" I asked, my voice low, but filled with venom. "What's your plan now that everything's out in the open?" Mark hesitated, clearly not expecting the question. "I don't know. Emily and I haven't talked about it. I want to be in his life, of course, but I'm not trying to disrupt your family any more than I already have." I scoffed. "You've already done that. Whether you like it or not, that child exists. You're a part of this mess now, and so am I." He nodded, looking more defeated than ever. "I know. I'll take responsibility for my son, but I'm not going to force anything. I'll leave it up to Emily and you. Whatever you decide." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I hadn't thought much about the child, at least not beyond the betrayal it represented, but now I had to. There was an innocent child in the middle of this disaster, a child who would one day ask questions, who would want to know why his parents weren't together, why his life was complicated before he even had a chance to understand it. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "You're right about one thing," I said. "Emily and I will figure it out. But don't think for a second that I'll let you off the hook. You've caused enough damage. Stay out of my life from here on out." Mark nodded, his expression grim. "I understand. I'm sorry, Ryan. For everything." "Sorry doesn't change anything," I said, turning to walk away. "Just stay away." When I got back to the house, the air felt different. Heavier, more tense. Emily was sitting in the living room, waiting for me. She must have known where I'd gone, or at least suspected it. "Did you see him?" she asked softly as I walked through the door. I nodded, too exhausted to speak at first. I dropped my keys on the table and collapsed onto the couch, feeling the weight of everything crushing me. "What did he say?" she asked, her voice tentative, like she was afraid of what my answer would be. "Nothing I didn't already know," I said quietly. "He's sorry. He regrets it. But that doesn't change anything." Emily nodded, wiping away the tears that were already forming in her eyes. "I'm sorry too, Ryan. I wish I could take it all back. I wish I'd never let this happen." "I know you do," I said, my voice softer now. "But we can't change the past. We can only decide what to do next." She looked at me, her eyes filled with hope. "What do we do next, Ryan? Can we fix this?" I stared at her for a long time, my heart torn in 1,000 different directions. I thought about Lily, about the life we had built together, and the future that seemed so uncertain now. Could we fix this? Could we ever rebuild the trust that had been shattered? "I don't know," I said finally, my voice breaking. "I don't know if we can fix this, Emily, but I do know one thing we have to try for Lily. She deserves better than this." Emily nodded, her tears falling freely now. "I'll do whatever it takes, Ryan. I'll go to therapy, I'll do anything. I just don't want to lose you." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "We'll start with therapy," I said. "But this is going to take time, Emily. A lot of time." "I'll wait," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I'll wait as long as it takes." For the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to hope. Just a little. Maybe we could rebuild. Maybe there was a chance to heal, not just for us, but for our daughter. But deep down, I knew that no matter how much time passed, no matter how much effort we put into fixing our marriage, things would never be the same. There would always be a scar, a reminder of what had been broken. And yet, for Lily's sake, I had to try. If you like such stories, then be sure to subscribe to the channel. It will be the biggest support for me.